Hey y'all, welcome back. My name is Sarah and I love to talk about movies. And today, we're going to talk about No Good Deed. I don't know if y'all remember when this came out. It's a few years old now. I decided to rewatch it. And I am here to share my thoughts with you today. The movie starts with TV footage showing the arrest of a man who the police think may have been responsible for 5 women who were kidnapped and murdered. It was like overlays of different kinds of footage saying that the most prolific murderer, heinous crime, like the most deplorable human being, that kind of stuff. So after, all these news stories about him being responsible for these women disappearing and their murder, we assume that a little bit of time has passed. The next clips were that they could not prove that Colin had committed the murders. They couldn't charge him with the kidnapping and murder of these 5 women, but they could charge him with murder after killing a man in a bar fight one night. That's what they did, and he was in jail for 5 years. In the next scene, you see more media clips saying that he was up for parole, even though he was supposed to be in jail for I think 8 years. He's only been in jail for 5. So then you see a jail transport van driving down a winding road. And then the next scene, we're inside the van and we see the person for the first time and sort of friendly with his driver and the guard. He knows them by name and he's like, "Can I count on your support?" And the driver is very friendly and the other guard is not. You get to his plea hearing and it goes a little differently than you normally see in these types of movies. The first thing I noticed is that, they do the standard thing where they, say why we're here, and that the prisoner is going to make a statement in lieu of his lawyer speaking for him. And he talks about how he's a changed man, how he's been teaching the other inmates how to read and write, and how the program is going to go statewide, and how he's really made some changes in his life, even though he did take a man's life. In addition to that other footage, they also mentioned how because they could not connect Colin to the missing women, like no DNA evidence or anything like that, they said that they could not take any of that information into the courtroom. So none of the information, none of the evidence of those crimes could be entered into evidence against him for this other crime. After he gives his little speech, one of the members of the panel says that he wants to make a statement, and he says that he's done his own research on this man and found that he's a negligible narcissist, that he went into a fit of rage and killed that man in the bar, and he would do it again, that he doesn't have control over himself, stuff like that. And while he's talking, Colin appears to be having a moment where he can see that he's getting agitated by the things that this man is saying, comparing him to Jeffrey Dahmer. And then he kind of stands up, he kind of interrupts him and says, wait. And then another panelist says that it has to be unanimous for them to accept his plea, and it's not, so that's the end of it. Next thing you know, he's in the transport van and they're traveling down that winding road again. Colin escapes, kills both guards, goes straight to his ex-girlfriend's house, confronts her, ends up killing her. Suddenly we're in another scene and we're seeing construction workers working on this huge house in the middle of this kind of secluded neighborhood. In the house, we meet Terry for the first time. She's clearly like a busy mom. She's like got 2 kids. One is still a baby. One is a little older. People are walking in and walking through the house, and there's a lot going on. Her friend comes in, was on a jog in the neighborhood, and she comes in and, she says hi and bye, that she'll be by later, and they can hang out because her husband is going out of town with his dad on a trip for his birthday. So her husband comes through and he seems very distracted. You could tell the relationship is a little strange. She goes to kiss him and hug him, and he pulls away because she's got food on her, and she's trying to make plans with him after he gets back. Why don't we take some time, and we hardly see you hardly spend time with the kids. And he says he's very busy and that he's got this trip coming up and he can't change his plans, but that they'll spend more time together when he gets back. He leaves. One of the builders comes in and he talks about the storm that's coming and it's going to be pretty bad, so they can't really do a lot about the construction. And in the next scene, you see Colin is driving. He starts to have another one of those like mental moments again where you see these flashes. Next thing you know, he's hit a tree, and then he goes stumbling up her driveway, Terry's driveway, to the house, and he knocks on the door and asks for help. He says that he's been in a car accident and can he use her phone? She's clearly hesitant. She says, yeah, that's fine. Closes the door, locks it, gets the phone, comes back out. He's still there. She gets a good look at him, sees that he's bleeding, and hands him the phone. And then her baby is calling her, so she runs back, leaves the door open, noticeably open, because they not only show it from him looking into the house, but also from inside of the house looking out. So it's like, look at this open door. She done left the door open from this angle and this angle. Look how wide that door is. Just so careless leaving that door open. So she runs back into the house to check on her child, comes back out. So she hears the end of his conversation with the tow guy. She invites him inside. So she bandages him up. She's like, oh, your shirt is soaking wet, so let me get you another shirt. Gives him a shirt. They get to talking and chatting each other up. And then her friend Meg stops by, and then Terry breaks out some wine, and her and Colin and Meg are just sitting, chilling, drinking this wine, getting to know each other. Meg is very curious about this man who's just stopped at her friend's house because he was in a car accident and is waiting on the tow truck, and asking him a lot of questions about where he lives and what he does for a living, that kind of thing. He's having these mental moments more frequently with these questions. She asks, do you guys know each other? And he says yes, and she says no. And she's like, no, we don't know each other. Terry goes to check on the kids, and they're alone. He asks if there's a place that he can go to smoke, and she says that he can go to the garage. She follows him into the garage. He makes it sound like he and Terry are having an affair. Meg is shocked, and she's like, I had no idea. Why didn't she tell me? So Meg decides that rather than just take his word for it, she's gonna ask her friend. She basically calls him a liar. And when she turns to go back into the house, he hits her in the head with a shovel, and Meg's gone. So Meg got. So he comes back in. He tells Terry that Meg left. She just left. He don't know where she is. And at that point, Terry starts to become nervous and is like, you know what, let me call her. I can't believe she just left. Was she upset when she left? And then she says, I'm gonna call the tow truck and make sure they're still coming. She suddenly is seeing these things that make her more nervous about having him in the house. He said, you mentioned something about your husband not coming home. She said, yeah, he's going on a trip. He won't be back. She makes a call to the police. She comes back down the hallway and she hears a noise coming from her kid's bedroom, and Colin is in there playing with her daughter, Ryan. And she sees the gun in the waistband of his pants. From there, it's like, what do you want? Why are you in my house? And then she attacks him with a fire extinguisher, and she manages to get away. And she's trying to grab her baby and the little girl and make her way out, but he recovers really fast. He catches her on the way out. Eventually, he gets Terry to leave the house with her and her daughter Ryan and the baby. And she manages to signal to a cop. Cop doesn't make it. So he directs her to another house. They go inside, and that's when you learn that was his ex-girlfriend Alexis's house. So Terry is seeing her dead body there. He's trying to get Terry to fix him up because she done stabbed him twice. And suddenly her car alarm goes off. He goes downstairs to turn it off. He ties her up before he leaves. And she manages to get a piece of broken pottery to cut herself free. And she hears a cell phone ringing. So she cuts herself free, answers the phone, and it's her husband on the phone. So while Colin is downstairs trying to figure out how to turn the alarm off on her car, she is realizing that her husband is having a relationship with this lady. She says, Jeffrey? He says, Alexis? She said, no, she's dead. She said, Terry? She said, your girlfriend is dead. Call the police. So she goes to her kids. You know, they figure out a way to hide. Colin comes back in. He thinks that they are out of the house, so he runs out, and they're trying to sneak out of the house. He catches them. There's this like crazy throwdown between Terry and Colin. She ends up shooting him several times, and then he falls out of a window. He's dead. And you know, then when he's dead, the police show up, her husband shows up, and she hits him in the face, and that's it. And then the next scene, you see her and her baby and her daughter Ryan are moving into a new house, and it's just them. She got her work heels on, her hair is laid, she got her Birkin, and she's directing movers, and she has a nanny that's getting ready to take the kids to a park. Park's right across the street. She's like asking the little girl, do you like the new house? And the realtor is coming out, and she's like, thank you. So they are just about to move in. She says, you know, I'll be at the courthouse, so you know that she's getting ready to start a new job there too. And that's how the movie ends. The leaps that in logic just left a lot of plot holes for me from the very beginning. There was too much here and also not enough. From the beginning, you're telling us that 5 women went missing and that you believe that this man is responsible for their murder or their disappearance and murder. They're assuming, I guess, because we don't get a lot of information on the circumstances around like what happened. How old were they? What were the circumstances like before they went missing? What connected him to them? If there was no evidence to connect him to them, why was he mentioned at all? They kind of skipped over that part, just talking about how the families want justice and they know that he did it, but they don't have enough evidence. And I was like, that's not enough for me. The parole hearing was weird. If the jury was not allowed to consider evidence from the like missing persons possible murder case, then I don't understand how one of the members on the panel was saying that he did his own research into the character of this person and compared him to like Jeffrey Dahmer. It seemed like he did exactly what the information earlier in the movie said that they couldn't do, which was consider evidence from the other case in this one, because based on the evidence, which is not very much that we're seeing here, we know that Colin killed that guy in a bar fight, which is not a shocking thing. That allegedly they got into a fight over his ex-girlfriend, which is also not shocking. We don't really get a very clear idea of his character. I mean, we know that he's a murderer, obviously, but the level that he's supposed to be operating at was kind of confusing, because clearly the idea of appealing to the panel did not work, even though everything that he mentioned was very neutral and sounded humble, making it clear that I've turned my life around. I've been in jail for 5 years. It's not like the panelists said that while you were in jail, you know, you beat up so-and-so, you killed this other guy, or you did this other thing. It was like, I've done my own research, and that didn't feel believable at all. I mean, not that it couldn't happen, but it just left a large plot hole. This idea that he's like highly intelligent and cunning and all that, and I'm like, okay, you're giving the man a lot. His escape didn't make it onto a radio or a television. If someone who's supposed to have committed this heinous crime, allegedly, wasn't convicted for that, but his parole hearing did not go well, and he escaped from jail by killing his driver and the guard. He is on the run. There should have been much more coverage of it very quickly afterwards. And I feel, which I don't know, that his ex-girlfriend who was involved in the original altercation should have been notified as well. She should have gotten a phone call. So the altercation with his ex-girlfriend was very disturbing. It sort of set the tone for the level of violence that he's operating at, but not the level of strategy that he's operating on. So it was kind of difficult to get a bead on him. Well, he clearly wants revenge, but how he's going to do that just seemed really fuzzy. So when he shows up at Terry's house, that is another large plot hole, because Terry, they live in, I'm not gonna say a gated community, but I'm gonna say a secluded community. Okay, have you seen that house? You don't just stumble on a neighborhood that looks like that. Him becoming literally blinded by his thoughts, because he literally crashed his car. If he crashed it so that he'd be able to show, hey, look, I crashed my car, I did that thing I said I did, he could have just hurt himself and said that the car, I don't know, fell off the side of the road or something. What really kept the whole movie grounded were the performances, because the direction, the film direction, was very heavy-handed. The dialogue was so heavy-handed. The look over here, look over there, look at that thing was very heavy-handed. Terry moving swiftly from, yes, you can use my phone, locking the door, coming back out, leaving the door unlocked, inviting him in, patching him up, giving him a clean shirt, offering him tea. And then when her friend came in, wine. It was just, we were moving way too fast. Also, when Terry starts talking about her job working in the DA's office, I was like, okay, so now we're trying to do too much. And then she said not only did she used to work in the DA's office, she used to work the homicide department of violence against women cases, and how they were easy to convict. The men weren't as smart as they thought they were. It was we're doing, saying that they're weak. Is she saying these things out loud, or is he hearing these things? And again, which brings the whole what's going on up here into question. I love the daughter's character. Her in the backseat, where are we going? Where is daddy? Giving up the ghost. And then her walking in when they're in the middle of an altercation. Girl, what? But actually, Ryan, her daughter, did push the story forward, because not enough was at stake until those moments. She pushed the stakes even higher. The scene in the shower, weird, but kind of different, as a way to keep an eye on her while he washed that stuff off his face. Well, off his whole body, because he got butt naked to get in that shower. The realization that he had decided to go to his ex's new man's house, because we assumed he was going to put a bullet in him, and then Terry being there with her kids, it explained why he was there. It felt like, because of what he's shown us about his character from the beginning of the movie, he literally could have showed up at anybody's front door. This could have been kind of similar to The Strangers, where it's just oh, you were home. Because he didn't seem to have an exit plan. It seemed like he wanted to hurt somebody who doesn't know he exists, and the person who he would hurt the most, he's already killed. So at that point, it was just what is the point of any of this? He kept shooting a gun that didn't seem to be firing. Terry lived in a house that, although it does look like it's out of a magazine, didn't seem to have a lot of character to it. What helped that house make it seem more like actual people lived there was Terry moving around that kitchen so much. Cleaning up, washing dishes, taking stuff off the island, taking it to the sink, rinsing stuff out, moving around, making tea, reaching into the cupboards, because otherwise it just seemed way too white and high maintenance to have two small children live there. The music and sound design didn't really stand out to me. It was really the storyline, the lack of character development. The performances were very good between him and between Colin and Alexis, Colin and Terry, Colin and Meg. Jeffrey's character was just kind of there. Took that punch like a champ, but otherwise, we didn't really get a lot from him. We know he has a job and apparently has enough time on his hands to have a whole mistress, but other than that, didn't really get a lot out of him. And besides feeling general sympathy for her, because she seems like a woman on the edge, you know, between her 2 kids and her absentee husband and this big old house to take care of, there wasn't really a lot to like connect to, you know? So I would give No Good Deed, I'd give it a 1 out of 5. Everything just seemed very generic. Like the house seemed very generic, costumes seemed very generic. It seemed like a very generalized story of like a madman on the loose, killing his ex-girlfriend. I did like that there was a combination of exterior locations, so that made it seem more real, like when they're driving down the road and they get out of the car, coming up to his ex's house with her, you know, driving into the courthouse. Little things that make the world seem slightly more real, but there just wasn't enough going on. Also, what was up with the color grading? Because at first it seemed crime, thrillery, raw and gritty, and sort of like green tone with deeper contrast. I don't know what was up with that, but that was weird. But you guys let me know what you think. Have you seen the movie? Did it scare you? Did it thrill you? Please let me know, and thank you for spending your time here with me. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all next time.